We seem to have this idea that when we develop a new habit, that's it. It's going to stick and we've checked the box and don't have to work on it any longer. But the sad reality is that habits still require work and they can eventually disappear from us. We've all had good habits which we now look at and they seem unattainable. And we wonder how we used to do it. And it seems our lives used to be so much more simple then. But in reality, we just began to slip out of that habit until it evolved into a bad one. Most people don't wake up one day with their lives a mess. It's a slow allowance of bad habits to creep in until eventually you're in a pit that seemingly can't be escaped. There's the common saying, Rome wasn't built in a day, to imply that things take time. And James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, rephrased it like this: Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour. This emphasizes how important small things are when it comes to doing something great. Where laying those bricks wouldn't have seemed to make a massive difference, but all added together literally built Rome. This is an important mentality to have when building habits, as it's critical to remember that small actions have a big difference in the long run if they're done consistently. Now I'm going to turn this around. Rome didn't fall in a day either. Literally, it may have been a day or even a few days, but if the same events that caused the fall had taken place during the peak of the Roman Empire, Rome may have survived. But it was a number of different factors which had developed over time that eventually led to the loss of one of the greatest empires in all of history. Some of these causes were things such as corruption within the vast Roman government, the loss of traditional Roman values, and the weakening of Roman troops. All of these can be linked to our habits on a metaphorical level. But none of these factors occurred immediately. They were all caused by slow decays of what had been well built up foundations. One of my favorite paintings, Thomas Cole's The Course of the Roman Empire, Destruction, shows a Rome being torn apart by barbarians, completely defenseless and unprepared. This can be likened to our struggles with adversity, without our own defenses of healthy habits and mental fortitude. It's very easy to fall into bad habits. It's actually the path of least resistance. And the funny thing is it happens so gradually that you won't even notice it unless you pay close attention. Like a frog in water slowly heating up, where he gets boiled alive as you slowly introduce it to warmer and warmer water until it's boiling. Where if you put the frog into already boiling water, they would have jumped out. So you'll first have a good habit, say working on your side hustle every day for 2 hours. But you come back from work one day and you feel a little bit more tired than usual. You decide to do an hour and 45 minutes instead of the full 2. And you get an extra 15 minutes to watch TV or play video games. Well, the next day you feel even more tired and less motivated, so you do an hour and a half. Because at least it's something. But even then, the work you do is not up to the standard you usually hold. But the next day, you just really don't feel like it, so you just do an hour. And then the next is 30 minutes, and then the next is 15. And then you decide that you actually don't have to do it today, because you've been working so hard lately, and you deserve a break. And maybe you do, except that break doesn't last one day, it lasts 2, and then a week, and then a month. And then suddenly one day you realize you haven't worked on your side hustle in 6 months. And your brain completely justified it and gave you an excuse that seemed reasonable. But your brain is a bit of a jerk that you need to ignore. The same thing often happens with exercise, as an unscheduled rest day becomes a rest week, rest month, and rest year, when you had no plan of that happening. And now you have to build that habit back from the ground up. A great preventative technique for this is what Jocko Willink does. If he really feels exhausted and he feels he needs a rest day, he still goes to train and then takes his rest day the next day, giving his body the time it needs to recover. Delaying his gratification. So if you really need to rest, still do what you have to do today and put off the rest for the next. But the day after that, you have to get back on it. A couple of months ago, I decided that I would start waking up early to get a head start on the day. My starting point was waking up at 9 a.m. So I first tried 8 a.m. and did that for a few days. Then 7:30, then 7, then 6:30, and now 6 a.m. And now I've successfully been beating the sun every morning for a couple of months. The one rule I had which enforced this habit was that when my alarm went off, I absolutely had to get up. No lying in bed and looking at my phone, but get up, make the bed, and get to the kitchen as fast as possible. But what made me decide to make this video is how my habit began to slip. I started to set my alarm 15 minutes later, and then when it went off, I would stay lying in bed for 5 minutes, and then 10, and then 20. And I would justify it to myself, saying how it's okay because I'm still awake, and I deserve to have a little extra rest. But suddenly when I'd get to the kitchen, I'd notice the sun was already up. And for the rest of the day, I would feel something was off, because I didn't start my day with a win. I started it with a compromise. So now I've begun getting up once again as soon as my alarm goes off. No allowance for extra rest, just get on with it. And once again, I'm beating the sun to the day. If I hadn't caught this habit slipping, I may have returned to my former sleep pattern, and I wouldn't have even noticed. The voice that seeks comfort is a loud and obnoxious one. Don't listen to it. It doesn't want what's best for you. It wants you to stay the same and not improve. And it's a very easy voice to listen to in this age of comfort where everything is set up to distract and relax you in the most seamless way. But the pain it will cause is worse and more damaging than any discomfort caused by ignoring it. So pay attention to this little voice as it will try to lead you astray. Fight it and be better, because it acts as though it's part of your own self-interest, but it's actually conspiring against you. This voice may even come from other people, which makes it seem more sage, but that should be even more of a concern because other people justifying your bad habits helps justify theirs. So absolutely ignore it and get back on track.